So yeah, it's true because I just started recording it. And Elad, I think you can go ahead.
Okay. So hi, I'm Elad. I'm the programmer that wrote Minno.js, and I'm a PhD student at Hebrew U. I study anxiety, and I'm a clinical psychologist. So I'm going to give two talks today. The first talk is an introduction to Minno.js, and just to give you some context for this tool and why we use it and how we use it, and some other things that could be useful to you. And then the second talk will essentially be live coding. I'll show you how to create a simple questionnaire and walk you through how this technology works and why we do it that way. At any point throughout my talks, feel absolutely free to ask questions, to stop me in the middle. It's I'm here to give you the most I can. Questions are the best way to do that. Okay. Any questions before we begin? Okay, let's go. Okay, so I'm Elad. You can contact me here. The source code for everything I'm going to show today and this presentation can be found in the documentation that accompanies this workshop. So Minno.js is a tool that for creating online studies, and its greatest advantage, I think, is that it allows to do very, very sophisticated things that other players have a very difficult time doing, and make it very roundabout to get to. And we're very, very good at finding straightforward solutions to very, very complex things, which somehow researchers always, always, always need. So here are the things that I plan to talk about. First of all, why Minno.js? Why did we create this tool? And again, I want to touch about its advantages. Then I want to talk about web basics, the framework where we work with this platform is on web studies. And in order to understand how web studies work, you need to understand some basic things about what the web is and how it works. Finally, we'll be creating a task together. In this case, a simple questionnaire, and and I'll just show you in live how I create the task, how I use the documentation. Finally, we'll have time for some questions. Okay, so why Minno.js? The original reason that we created Minno.js is almost 10 years ago, I think. Project Implicit figured out that Flash isn't gonna work anymore, and decided to transition into JavaScript. So at the beginning, we tried to copy the Flash program that we had there, and then we decided that we needed something a lot more flexible, a lot more powerful, that allows to do a lot more things, and that was the beginning of Minno.js. Now, with tools of this sort, there's always a trade-off between ease to use and flexibility. My go-to example for where you can see this is the difference between SPSS and R, for example. So SPSS is a statistical program that allows you to do practically everything using a graphical user interface. The problem with SPSS is that you're limited by the graphical user interface. And that's why a lot of people are moving to other programs using Python or R for the statistics, simply because working directly with code gives them a lot more flexibility. And Minno.js decided to put itself on the flexible side of things, and the interface with Minno.js is programmatic. We work with plain text, and we essentially program directly with code. And what we gain in we pay with ease of use. There's definitely a learning curve for using Minno.js, but we gain big time in flexibility and with the range of things that we can create. Okay, so I want to go just a bit into the basics of the web, how the web works, and the languages that drive it. So the first thing that you need to understand about the web and about the internet is that it's all about communication. Every web page you open is essentially a communication between your personal computer and another computer that holds all sorts of information. Sorry. When you open your email, assuming that you're using a web client, you click gmail.com, and then a Gmail server sends you all sorts of data about the mail that you have. The server has the data, and it sends you information. And when we create web studies, that's exactly what we do. We create the content on the server, and the users ask the server for data, tell the server, hey, show me this study. And then they take the data from the server, the study that you created from the server, and they run it on their computer or on their smartphone, whatever. And when they're done with the study, they save their results, and they save it back to the server. And so the server has both the study itself, the files that you will learn to create, and it has programs that are responsible for saving the responses. And we created all the programming needed on the server, and for both creating the study and saving the data. Your job as researchers, as Minno.js programmers, is to describe how the clients how the client's interaction look like. Okay, and that's the next step. Now, the internet has several languages that are used to describe these interactions. So the first language is called HTML. It stands for Hypertext something language. Wait, I have problems with my animations, never mind. So the HTML looks more or less like this. It's a version of XML that basically means it uses this weird notation with the small arrows. And this piece of HTML simply says, hello world. And HTML is responsible for the content of the web and a bit for the structure. CSS, cascading something or another, is responsible for how the web looks, about the colors, about the shapes, a bit about animations, though that it's unlikely that you need to use it. And it's a layer over over HTML. So for example, this piece of CSS creates a class called intro, which has a font color blue and is center aligned. And this definition of class equals intro means use this CSS class with this HTML. Okay, these are the first two citizens of the languages of the internet. Last but not least is JavaScript. JavaScript is responsible for any interactions that you have on the page. It used to be, like probably 20 years ago, that this was just a small addition over that made the pages look a bit better. But nowadays JavaScript runs everything. It creates the HTML. It changes the styles. It's responsible of a vast percentage of your interactions with the web. And Minno.js is written in JavaScript. What this means is that all the interactions that you have within, or most of the interactions you have within Minno.js happen on the client side, on the user's computer. What this means is that the interactions are very, very fast and relatively accurate. Okay, now when you write a Minno.js script, you essentially write it in JavaScript. You don't really need to program in JavaScript because we have a sort of language specifically built to create experiments. But you write this language in JavaScript, and the basics. And so you need to understand the basics of the language, at least how it looks, in order to understand and to write Minno.js scripts. So we'll take a few moments to go just through the very, very basics of variable types in JavaScript. So the first thing that you need to know is about numbers, and writing a number is as simple as writing a number in JavaScript. You just put it in and it works. Then you have strings. Strings is when you want to write text. If you write words without these apostrophes, are they called? Without these signs, JavaScript will think that you're writing variable names. We don't want that. If you want to tell Minno.js about something written, a set of words, a single word, you want to wrap it in these apostrophes, and your editor will color them in an appropriate color. It varies between editors, but usually it's easy to identify. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is arrays. Arrays are ordered sets of other variables. They can be integers, they can be reals, they can be strings, they can be objects. Anything you want, you can put in an array. And what they look like is these square brackets, and the different elements are separated by commas. Here you have another array that has strings in it, and it's set not in a single line, rather separated by line breaks. They're essentially the same. You're going to see a lot of these today and tomorrow, and as you see them more and more, they'll be easier to read. You don't need to memorize everything I say right now. You'll run into it again and again and again until you get used to it. Finally, we have objects. Objects are wrapped in curly brackets like this, and they're built of key values. And you can the keys are arbitrary. You can decide to use whatever keys you want. Specifically, Minno.js uses specific keys and values in order to express different different commands, different behaviors. But just to understand the gist of things, you can have an object, see these curly brackets, and two different keys, and the values for each of these keys, the key type and the key list, can be different. You have one key with the type with a string, and another key with an array, and it can get rather varied. Okay. Finally, we have functions. I don't think that you'll be using functions anytime soon, but I want you to see how functions look, just so when you see them in the future, you aren't surprised. So a function is built of a function definition, just the word function, and then a pair of what are they called?
Arguments.
Parentheses.
Parentheses. Thank you. A pair of parentheses with arguments, and then a pair of curly brackets. These curly brackets are not objects; they're just the limits of the function content. And inside you can have all sorts of code and use the arguments and do interesting things. Finally, after defining a function like this, you can use it just by writing its name with parentheses and pass in the arguments, and that's it. If you did not get all this, it's fine. You won't be using these too much. I'm just trying to give you a wide enough perspective to understand what you see later on, and as we go, I'll explain these again, and things will be easier. Okay, and it gets more complex. Okay, let's talk about Minno.js. Sorry, let's talk about Minno.js. So first of all, Minno.js is built of several types of tasks. First, we have a task manager, which is responsible for organizing different subtasks, telling them what the order of tasks is, and arranging them. Yoav will talk about the task manager a bit more later on today. Second of all, we have a response time task. We call it Minno time, which is responsible for anything that measures response time. In general, every time you want to have some sort of custom interaction for your participants, this will be where you go. This is what we make IATs, Posner tasks, Stroops. Some of you have students have created incredibly complex games with Minno time. It's very, very, very flexible, and we're going to talk more about it tomorrow. Finally, we have questionnaires, which are basically questionnaires. We'll get more into them later on today. And then there are all sorts of utilities. I'll show you the documentation later. There are a lot of utility tasks that you can use to create instructions, to save all sorts of data, to do all sorts of interesting things. We won't talk about them too much today. And then there's the documentation. at minno.js.github.io. Go there and see it. Where's my chat? I'll post it in the chat. This is where we go all the time to get to see the documentation, to remember all the various commands and functions that Minno.js has. I think it's pretty extensive, and everyone uses it all the time. So it should be the first place you go. Okay, so these in general are the task types. These are the types of things that we do with Minno.js. But how do we do these things? So the first thing that you need to know is that we use that an experiment is built of plain text files. What you might be used to as .txt. We use .js, which means .javascript, sometimes .jst, which is .javascript template, and that's where we put the whole experiment, and we use the dashboard in order to create these files and to edit them and to change them. If you want, you can use a different editor. Some people prefer that, but the dashboard does a really good job of both giving you an editor and making it really easy to run the files in live. So this is the general outline of how of what a script file looks like. First of all, we have a wrapper. These lines at the beginning and the end, they're essentially the same for every task you create. There's a little difference here in the sort of API that you create, and but you just need to copy paste them for each task you create. Then we have calls to the API. The API is an object that we create in order to help us out in the building of each task. This also repeats itself in practically every trial, every task, and so does this. And finally, we have a sequence. The sequence is the heart of every task. In every task, we have a series of actions to do, whether these actions are running a whole Minno.js task, a Minno time task, a questionnaire, whether it is showing a specific trial for Minno time, where a page with questions for Minno quest. The sequence is the heart of your script, and we'll see how to use it shortly. But this is the very, very basic setup for a Minno.js script file. Any questions about this? Okay, let's go on. Let's see some more things. Okay, so I think this is the basic background I want to give you about Minno.js before diving into a specific task. And the first task that I want to work with is a Minno questionnaire. So Minno questionnaires, the basic building block of a Minno questionnaire is a page. Each page can have a question or more than one question. And each of these building blocks is coded as as a single object. If you remember, when we talked about the JavaScript types, we said an object was delimited by these by this scrolly bracket, and it's built of keys and values. In this case, the first key, header, defines the header for the page, and the key questions holds an array of specific questions, and the questions themselves are also defined as objects. Okay, this is the very basic idea that you need to know in order to understand pages and questionnaires. Now, from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move to leave this presentation for now, and go into. So you have. Do you think we should stop now before going to the questionnaires? Give them a break.
Yeah, it's a good. It might be a good point. It means that then you have another hour to show them how you code the questionnaire.
Okay.
Yeah, so it means that we're on time.
Yeah. Okay. So let me say a few words on what we're going to do, and then I'm going to say them again later on. The next thing that we're going to do is live code a questionnaire. We take this we take this very basic template and start building with it into a whole questionnaire. I'll show you how to create a questionnaire, how to use the documentation, how to use it within the dashboard. Okay. So okay. Any questions about this last section?
Yes, just really quickly. Thank you so much. Is each question its own object?
Yes. You have an object for the page, and inside the page object you have a set of objects, each corresponding to a question.
Thank you.